All right, folks, welcome everybody once again to our YouTube channel. This is Mike Frank here with Christian Uyama. Dude, it's already that. I mean, I'm having a rough day already. What the heck? I'm sorry. It's Christian McCollum, one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing great too. And we're going to talk some recruiting. Obviously, there's a big recruiting weekend for Notre Dame. We are looking at a situation where big game in Ohio State. And because of that, there's a lot of top 20, 25 recruits coming in this weekend. So we thought we would talk about them and some of the top players. This is not the all-inclusive list for sure. But these are most of the players we feel Notre Dame has a good shot at and is targeting. There are certainly some other players, and there will be other players that are added to the list, I'm sure. And my guess is there's probably that we'll be talking about a few today that probably won't end up showing up because that's just the way it always works every time we do this. So, but Chris, let's get started. The first couple guys we're going to talk about, and the first one's Arkansas running back Daniel Anderson. I'm having a hard time the first couple, and the reason why is there's just not a lot of film where anything kind of jumps out at me. And I don't mean that in any disrespect to Daniel Anderson. I know he has been on campus. They've watched him in camp. They know a lot about this kid. But when I watch the film, I just don't see any kind of elite running back traits. I just don't see it. I don't see really explosiveness. I don't see, loose hips or the ability to jump cut. It's just not there on the film. There's just kind of a lot of runs like this one particular right here where it's kind of an end around and he just kind of runs away from everybody. So, the speed is pretty solid. I wouldn't say it's elite, but, pretty solid player. I just don't see on film why he is or why he's a guy that they offered and is excited, they're excited about. That doesn't mean that he can't be a good player. And I don't mean any disrespect to him. Obviously, he earned his offer by showing up to camp and performing. So there was something they liked about him. But just watching his film, it just, it's not the same thing as you'd see with an Aeneas Williams or a Kedron Young. And so it's kind of a little bit of a surprise that he was offered compared to their film. But again, they must have seen something that they really, really liked about him. He seems to be a guy who likes Notre Dame quite a bit. Some people even feel like he may end up pulling the trigger at some point. But with Thurman already being in fold, I wonder if that's going to be an option for him because, one, they may take – I'd be surprised if they took more than two backs unless something changes with the roster, meaning, somebody transfers out or something like that. So, and I know there's other backs that they're in on, and, he kind of seems like a Thurman type of back. I do like Thurman a little bit better than him. So I'm just not sure, whether he'll have that option. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, like you said, he came to camp, came to the Irish Invasion, and that's where he got his offer. It was a shocker, number one, just because his only other offer was Long Island. But, like you said, he came there. I'm told he's much improved. He's improved greatly from last year to this year. And he must have displayed that at the camp because, it was an offer that, we confirmed to Notre Dame. Yep. And as far as would they take his commitment? I think that was up in the air at one point. But in checking with some sources just this week, I think they would. I think they would be happy with it. And at this point, I think, Notre Dame is the clear leader without a doubt. But, I think there might be some people in his camp that are saying, hey, let's not just, jump right away. Let's kind of wait and stuff like that. Let's kind of see. But the things they do like about him, I think a lot of it has to do with his character. And then a lot of the other physical traits are things that they believe they can help him develop even further. So they really like him. You know what I mean? So you look at the film, you can make your own judgments. But, this is a kid Notre Dame really likes. And from what I'm told, they would take his commitment this weekend if he wanted to.
Interesting. And that's, they know better than me, and I have not seen any of the junior film. And again, Jadarian Price, I had some questions about watching his sophomore film. And then I watched his junior film and I went, oh boy, I get it. I see it now. And then of course, I watched his senior film and I went, oh, wow, this guy's a really special player. So guys do develop and they do get better and that type of thing. So again, we'll just have to see how it unfolds. But that's what we've seen with Daniel Anderson. Let's move on to Jerome Bettis Jr. And again, this is a tough one, man. I just, they went and watched him, and they've seen him in camp a bunch. They know a lot about him, but it's kind of the same thing when you watched his film. There's just nothing that jumps out on me on film. I think his longest catch is like 20 yards on here, and he's tackled immediately. It's just there's a lot of like 10-yard routes, and nothing really special happens in those 10-yard routes other than he catches the football. I'm not saying that the kid's not worthy of an offer. There's just nothing to go on here with his film to really say, oh, this guy's going to be a special player. Obviously has the elite pedigree, all that. And everybody knows that. So, certainly they've watched him in camp and they know what they would be getting in him. And they certainly haven't soured on him in any stretch. So, I think he's definitely a guy they'd take at this point. And it's just really hard when you watch his film to say anything that you're like, oh, I get it, So again, no disrespect to him. It's just there's just not a lot of film here to really judge it by, and we'll just have to see when he chooses Notre Dame and gets on campus.
Yeah, one of the things with him, right? Like, so he understands the score, right? He knows what his name is. So when he got offered, one of his kind of things he needed to be told was like, "Hey, man, I don't want to just be offered because I'm Jerome Bettis' son." And they had this conversation in these words, but it pretty much was important to him. Like, I want to be offered on my own merits. And so Notre Dame really had to justify that to him. They had to say, hey, listen, we wouldn't offer you unless we wanted you, regardless of your, connection to the university. And once he was assured of that, he hasn't really been shy at all about saying Notre Dame's number one school. I mean, I don't even know who the next step would be. He does have some, offers. He's got an A&M offer. He's got Georgia Tech offer, Arkansas, Missouri. So this isn't just like a Notre Dame legacy reach is the only one that offered him. But at the same time, he's been to Notre Dame several times since the offer. He loves it. It seems like only a matter of time here. And this isn't a case where doesn't seem to be a case where Notre Dame's slow playing him. Because everyone I talked to over there about, Jerome Bettis Jr., they talk like they're pretty confident that he's going to end up in this class. So I think he too is a take.
All right, sounds good. Next guy we're going to take a look at is Illinois wide receiver. Is it Talyn Taylor, or how do you pronounce Talyn?
Talyn Taylor, yep.
Okay. Dude, this is a must get. I mean, they got to get this guy. This guy is just special, and he's kind of a Will Fuller type in that his body shape. But he's just much better than that. This guy can play in the slot. Kind of reminds me of a not quite as thick Percy Harvin, a guy you can run a lot of end rounds with, a guy you can play in space, but also has the ability to get deep. This is a very fast player who can run away from anybody that's covering him but also play in the slot and get the ball in his hands in space, and he can make a lot of people miss. He's really the perfect complement to what they have in Cam Williams. And if Notre Dame can land this guy and you put Cam Williams out there as well, now you're starting to look like Ohio State. And in fact, I like Cam Williams and this player easily as much, or if not more, than anybody Ohio State has signed in the last couple of years. And I really like those players that much. And this kid, he's a must get. They got to figure out a way to get him. He's got elite top end speed, the burst, the ability to change direction very quickly in space. Just a special player. And I know he went and visited Georgia. Everybody in the country's after this kid, but somehow they got to find a way to get this kid. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, so like you said, everyone in the country's after him, right? I mean, you're going to have to beat Georgia and USC and UCLA and all the Midwestern schools to get him. But this is going to be a long process, right? This is not a kid that they're hoping to land, this weekend when he gets up there and just blow him away. So Notre Dame understands what they're doing here. They're investing in the long-term game here. And he's, like you said, Mike, he's a top of the board type talent, right? This is a guy that they know that this is guy they've targeted. He's one of their very top guys. He's been to Notre Dame twice, came for the spring game, came back for that grill and chill in July, which I think we're going to see pay a lot of dividends in the end. I think one of the best things about the grill and chill was all these kids got to be around each other as much as anything. So this is a recruitment that's going to play itself out over the next several months. And Notre Dame's just doing their best to get in position to be there in the end.
Got to get him, Chris. Somehow got to land this guy. This is the type of player that they've been lacking. And you know, I think Logan Saldate's a guy that can do some of the types of things that this player does, but it's just a whole nother level with this guy. He's just a tremendous talent, and I'm very excited about him. So hopefully, I love the fact that he's coming back for this game. Hopefully it's a big showing. I think the fact that you have Deuce committed is going to help that situation, because now you've got, you're going to have at least a couple elite quarterbacks that'll throw you the ball. Notre Dame's also got some talent at wide receiver now, so you're not going to be completely double covered every time you're out there. You got a Cam Williams, a guy that I'm sure he's very familiar with, as a guy that'd be coming in with you. So it's just, it would be an ideal situation for Notre Dame if they could land him. All right, let's move on to the big uglies. Let's start with Matty Augustine. And dude, this is an interesting player. I really like this guy a lot. And it's the interesting thing about him is, he's growing into his body. And sometimes I don't like guys that are, necessarily blown up and they're already 295 pounds coming in. I like that the fact that this guy's probably going to come in at about 280, and it's just going to be a slow build on his body, because sometimes I think if you put too much weight on a body at some point, it slows down your ability to develop your agility as a player. And this is a guy who could easily be a tackle. There's no question about it. He certainly has some things he needs to work on. Sometimes I think he needs to play a little bit lower than he does, and needs to bend a little bit. But, I just think he's going to become a very agile player as time gets on. He's got good feet and sets up with a nice base there. Also, plays pretty solid as far as with his hands, but just like to see him bend a little bit more, both at the knee and his waist. But at the end of the day, this is the kind of guy that's really going to develop into a fine player once all is said and done. I like his nastiness. I think he's going to be – there's another great play there, just showing that nastiness where, he's out there and he's pushing and, way probably past the bell, and that's a good thing. So I like seeing that. All right, let's move on. Or what can you tell us about Augustine?
Yeah, so Matty's a kid who reclassified to 2025 last year, and that's when his recruitment really blew up. He ended up coming back. He's been into Notre Dame a few times. He was out there for the Lineman's Challenge in June, and that's where he earned his offer. He also, has offers from like Ohio State, Wisconsin, Michigan, those schools. Right now, I think it's going to be a Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's at the top of the list, to be honest. I think Wisconsin and Michigan are the schools that, they're going to have the most competition with. He already visited Wisconsin once. He visits Michigan at the end of the year. He's a guy Notre Dame really wants, right? I know at one point they were hoping that, they could even maybe lock him down this weekend. But I spoke with Matty recently. He made it real clear to me that he's not going to make any decisions until the end of the season at the earliest. I think he really does want to get to Michigan at the end of the year there. But Notre Dame's in great shape. He's a classic Notre Dame kid. I mean, he's one of those kids. He's more mature than me, Mike, when you talk to him. So he just has it. And
impossible.
Well, not that hard, some people would say, right?
Yeah.
But he really seems like a Notre Dame kid. Like I can't believe he's a junior in high school. I know he reclassed, but he almost seems like he's a guy that's already on the Notre Dame offensive line when you talk to him, just how mature he is. And he's also, he coming from Brunswick, a lot of people with these Connecticut prep schools have been, upgrading in terms of top tier talent. The competition level can be a question at sometimes, but in terms of like the transition to Notre Dame, I mean, these places are very similar to Notre Dame. So he'll make that transition easy. He's also really good friends and teammates with safety target Ethan Long, who we'll talk about later. They're actually like living together, and they are not shy about the idea of playing at the same school. And to be honest, Notre Dame's probably the only school I really, really could see that happening. I think Notre Dame has a great shot with Matty.
Yeah, I like him. Again, he's going to have a little bit of work to do once he gets here, but I like his feet. I think he's just going to be a tremendous player, and I definitely see him as a tackle prospect. So that's good news. All right, moving on to Wisconsin O line, Owen Strebig. I like this kid a lot, and you know, kind of reminds me of a Peter Jones type of player. Big, giant body, right? But also plays low. I like it. You see there, he's got bends very well, keeps his butt down. Good knee bender. Probably needs to latch on a little bit more. Sometimes, he loses his man now and again. But very powerful, very physical player. Definitely a guy who can play tackle, but I think he may end up being a guard when it's all said and done. And certainly going to be, he looks at least 6'6" to me, but I think it'll be interesting to see. I'd like to see more of him in a poll game. We don't get to see that much on film as to whether he can be a good guard, but he's got the nastiness you're looking for in a guard, certainly the size, but again, there staying low and getting under his man, even though the guy's probably 6'7", just does a really good job. And here, very good feet, keeping that guy in front of him and using his hands. And this is a well-coached guy. He looks like a guy that played Wisconsin that's coached under Joe Rudolph. That's what he looks like already. So I can see why Rudolph is, excited about this guy and wants him. And again, I think this is a guy that will probably land in Notre Dame's class. I think he likes Notre Dame quite a bit. Again, probably a Peter Jones type, but there's a nice pull there. That's what you want to see, being able to get down the line of scrimmage quickly and making plays down the line of scrimmage and finding his man and pushing him out of the way. So very, very high on Owen. I think he's going to be a really good player, and I really want him in this class. What can you tell us about Owen?
I can tell you Notre Dame really wants him in this class too. He is a top of the board priority. They really, really, really high on him. They seem confident they're going to get him too. There's a time when I was concerned about Wisconsin. Wisconsin is still a threat. You're going to have to beat Wisconsin for in-state kids like this. But I think Notre Dame's out in front. I don't think he's going to do anything relatively soon. He has a visit scheduled to USC at the end of the season. He's already been out there once. So, there's obviously some interest. It's a lot of times you'll see kids from the Midwest. They say, hey, I want to go check out USC. I want to go check out Florida. They kind of just want to get to other parts of the country and see what it's like. He's already been there and wants to go back. So I think there's something there. But at the same time, I do think Notre Dame is in the best position with Owen coming into this weekend.
Not a USC kid. I couldn't see it. Maybe I'll be surprised, but I don't know.
I would say the same thing, except I almost think that's the holdup why Notre Dame's not really thinking that they can get him this weekend. So I think it's it makes more sense with, like you said, doesn't seem like a USC kid. We talked about Matty Augustine. He wants to go see Michigan. He's definitely like a kind of kid that could end up at Michigan.
Yeah, sure.
So you're like, oh, he's holding up. He wants to go to this Michigan game. Owen's doing the same thing with USC. You know what I mean? Or now maybe the kid understands Notre Dame's probably going to have a spot for him regardless, so he doesn't need to rush. But it's a long trip. He's already been out there to USC once. If you were just sightseeing, I don't know if you want to take that huge flight all the way to LA if there's no interest there.
Oh, it's fun out there. I can get it. I totally understand why, but I just think he's the type of kid that's going to fit into Notre Dame's, culture and program better than he would USC. But
I agree.
We'll see. We'll see what happens in the end. So, all right, moving on. We're going to go some defensive line and recent offer in Kentucky defensive end Austin Alexander. What can you tell me about him? And then I'll give you some thoughts. But what do you know about Austin Alexander and why Notre Dame offered him?
So this kid is fired up about Notre Dame. All right. This kid he visited last year. He didn't have an offer from Notre Dame. He showed up. He was like so over the moon. Then he came back like 2 weeks later for another game. And he was really, really fired up. And, they offered him right on the eve of the season. Right. So I think it was like right at the end of August there. They offered him, and then he immediately scheduled a visit to get up for the home opener. And then he was back again, and now he's coming back again this weekend. It's really, really hard to overstate how serious he is about Notre Dame. His uncle is Sean Alexander, the former running back at Alabama and with the Seattle Seahawks. And his dad actually went to Notre Dame. His dad didn't play football, but he was in the marching band there. So really, really strong Notre Dame connection. It seems like a school he really, really likes. So for Notre Dame, they were just waiting on his junior film, right? And if you see some of this film that you're looking at now, this guy, he plays hard. Mike, he plays really, really hard. So I think that's something that they were looking to see. And once they saw that, they went ahead and said, hey, let's pull the trigger.
I mean, that's what I think is the best thing about this guy is, he is definitely a guy that's got a great motor and really good, get off. What I don't see, they list him at 218 pounds. I think he looks a lot bigger than that to me. I mean, he looks like he's at least 230. And he seems like the kind of guy that's going to grow into almost a strong side defensive end and maybe even a defensive tackle. Got kind of that lower base that I think is going to develop and get bigger. But a really good football player. I get why Notre Dame offered him for sure. Just really violent, great hands, great hands there just to get around the guy. And I think this guy's going to be a very good player for Notre Dame if he chooses Notre Dame. It's interesting, the Sean Alexander thing. Notre Dame actually had a really good shot at Sean Alexander, when he was a recruit. Long story. If you ever see me at a bowl game or a football game or tailgate or anything like that in the future, ask me about it. I'll tell you the story. We'll really go into it here, but I Notre Dame actually did have a really good shot at him, and so I think that they're familiar or family wise. I think that they do have a liking to Notre Dame, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Obviously, he's a guy that likes Notre Dame quite a bit, but I don't see like elite anything as far as length, bend, any of that type of stuff, which leads me to believe he'll probably be more of a strong side defensive end. But I think he could be a very good player there. And I definitely understand why they offered him. So moving on, let's go to Chris Burgess and talk about him. This is an interesting one here too. And, I know a lot of people have him as a defensive end. I don't know. I think he's going to grow into a defensive tackle. I just do. He plays a lot of inside here for Simeon, and I totally get why teams are after him. When you look at, plays really well with his hands, good coached, well coached player. I don't see the great, explosive pursuit that you would look for as a defensive end. He looks more like a defensive tackle to me. And when you look at his lower body, I think he's going to develop. That's going to develop. He's going to be, 285 in no time. And, so I think that's where ultimately I see him. Now, I could definitely see him as a strong side defensive end. I think he's going to start out there. But he just seems really natural kind of in his 4-point stance and going after the quarterback and using his quickness in his hands to penetrate and become a good run defender as well as a pass defender. What can you tell us about Burgess? Did I lose you, Chris?
Gotcha. I'm here.
Okay.
This is a guy who's really, really excited about Notre Dame. I mean, every time he visits Notre Dame or you talk to him about Notre Dame, he like perks up, right? He's just so excited about Notre Dame. He loves Coach Freeman, loves Coach Washington. He's already been down multiple times. And just to show how serious he is about Notre Dame, this guy has a game on Saturday at like 2:00 in Chicago. And he's playing in that game and he's hustling his butt down to South Bend. And this isn't like something that, I said I was going to come and now I didn't realize it. Like he knew that this was going to be the case like back in the summer. And he was like, I'm coming to multiple games at Notre Dame, but it's going to be hard. I might be there late. So that's just the kind of interest he has in Notre Dame. He was so excited about Notre Dame afterwards that I had to wait a couple weeks and check back with some sources close to him to say, hey, I know Chris was real fired up when I spoke to him, as he kind of calmed down. They're like, no, he still loves it. He absolutely loves it. Now, that's not to say Notre Dame's going to get him regardless. He has a lot of other offers, a lot of big time offers that he's going to be considering seriously here. He's, as far as visits, like I said, his schedule is going to be kind of up in the air with a lot of Saturday games, but the other schools he's talked about visiting are Michigan and Colorado. We're going to be hearing Colorado a lot more recently. As we go forward here, but Notre Dame is a school that's really, really top of the board for him.
You can just see he's a strong kid, man. He's going to be, and that's why I do think he's going to grow into a defensive tackle. He just plays with a lot of power, and that lower body's just going to get stronger and stronger, and you can see why Georgia, Alabama, all these teams are offering him because you can tell he's just going to develop into quite the player when it's all said and done. All right, let's move on to another Illinois player. We got him as a Vyper and Dom Hulak. Is that how you
Hulak?
Hulak?
Yep.
This is an interesting prospect. When you watch the film, this kid's a really good athlete. But when you watch him, he's like way bigger than anybody else that's out there. And they list him at 6'3", and I think that's a definite legit 6'3". It's just when you look at everybody else is like 6'1" that he's playing against. So it's hard to really say, how good he is, because I don't think the competition he plays against is necessarily that good. Having said all that, this is a guy who's a really good athlete. He runs well, gets to the football, very good kind of straight line speed. And I know they list him as a Vyper, but here's my concern. Is this another Josh Burnham? Not that Josh Burnham is a bad player. The guy's played a lot already. But is he a guy that it's going to take a little bit of time for him to develop as a Vyper? You see the pursuit, you see the aggressiveness, you see the quickness, but does he have the length? Does he have the ideal body you're looking for as a Vyper? And if he's never actually played the position, like in the film here, we don't really see him rush the passer from the edge. And with Burnham, we didn't see that much either. So there is going to be a learning curve if that's what they take him. But when you watch him as an athlete, you understand why Notre Dame is interested in him. He's a heck of an athlete, but plays middle linebacker. And, we've seen with Junior Tuihalamaka and we've seen with Josh Burnham, it's not as easy as a transition as a lot of people think. And when I think of Vyper, I'm thinking of guys like, Logan Thomas, 6'4", very long arms, kind of skinny frame, the ability to bend. This guy's already kind of got that thick body like a Burnham did coming in, and Tuihalamaka. And, can they become the kind of bend player that can bend around the corner and make the plays that you're looking for as an outside pass rusher? And I don't know. I definitely like his film. I think he's a good football player. It's just, can he develop into that? And I really don't know the answer to that right now. So, kind of a projectable guy, certainly a good athlete, and I understand why he's offered by Notre Dame. But what can you tell us about him?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned how it might take some time for him to develop to get on the field into that Vyper position, because at one point that was the only concern I had in terms of Notre Dame's chances is, I was told he doesn't want to sit on the bench. He wants to go somewhere where he can play. He's never sat on the bench. None of these kids have ever sat on the bench. And not getting a chance to play immediately seemed like it might be something that, would matter to him. After the grill and chill, I didn't get that at all. I didn't hear any of that. It sounded like he absolutely loved it. I think he understands what Notre Dame is more now. He's already been there a few times, but I think when these kids come for camp, especially when they're not just like definitely kids going to come to camp and get an offer, just check the box. When it's a kid that actually earns the offer and it's kind of somewhat uncertain, I think those visits can be somewhat hectic for a kid. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. You're not really looking around, taking everything in. You're more focused on what you got to do. So that was kind of his camp visit. Coming back for grill and chill, I think he really got a true appreciation for Notre Dame. And I think they're probably in their driver's seat right now. He has a really good relationship with, Al Golden, Marcus Freeman, Chad Bowden. He feels like he'd fit with the players. But Notre Dame's going to have to beat, those Midwestern schools, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Purdue, Iowa, those schools like that. And even though he seems like he kind of is not so worried about the playing time thing right away, I do think he's kind of, not in a rush to make a decision. So we'll see. I know the people around him absolutely love Notre Dame. I know he's got a lot of people that are really, really impressed with Notre Dame around him.
All right, let's go to 2025 Illinois defensive end Joseph Reiff. Is it Reiff or Reiff?
Reiff.
Okay, Reiff. Okay. Now, look, kind of a similar situation. Plays defensive end, and I think, look at that quickness there. You love seeing that as a defensive end, just ability. When you got an open lane, you can get through that lane quickly without getting, offensive line getting your hands on you, that type of thing. But again, when I look at his body, I just wonder if this guy's going to grow into a defensive tackle. It certainly can play the strong side defensive end. That's where he's going to start for sure. He started out for sure. But again, I think he's a guy that could possibly grow into a strong side defensive, or I mean, a defensive tackle. Seems to play well in an enclosed environment. Doesn't need a lot of space to be effective, and very good get off there, as you see, can get off and knife through and make a big play. But sometimes, when you watch, you see he stays really low, in his stance and coming out of that stance. And it just, to me, just kind of reminds me more of a defensive tackle. And again, I can totally understand why you're looking at this kid and saying, okay, here's another kid that will be a strong side defensive end. But to me, I like his potential inside, and we'll see what happens with him. But I know he likes Notre Dame quite a bit. But if you look at his frame, it looks like a guy that's probably going to grow to 275 pretty quickly. Kind of a Mukam type of body frame. And, we'll see what happens. But I like his potential. I know that Notre Dame likes him quite a bit. And he also likes the Irish. What do you know about him?
I try to stay away, and it might not seem like it, but I try to stay away from the this is a quote unquote Notre Dame kid, because I feel like you could almost say that about almost every guy that Notre Dame lands. But sometimes it's just unavoidable, and it was that way with running back commit Justin Thurman. It's this way with Reiff. I mean, you talk to this kid for 90 seconds, and you're like, oh yeah, that kid's probably going to go to Notre Dame. It's just the maturity, how sharp he is, the way how articulate he is. All that stuff. So it's just an absolute fit off the field. Now, his father played at Northwestern. I think, obviously those schools have a lot of similarities. I think the whole family understands the potential fit at Notre Dame. Another kid, just like Hulak, where we talked about, where he came up and earned his offer at camp. I checked on, most of these offers we check on, hey, that a committable offer? And I'm told absolutely it is. So, it does sound like Notre Dame's out in front. I get a good feeling that that's the case, but at the same time, he's being advised like, hey, listen, don't rush this process. This is the kind of thing you only want to do once. We don't want to be committing and flip-flopping and all that stuff. So let's be sure of our decision before we make it. How long is that process going to take? I don't know. I mean, those are conversations I had, probably in the middle of the summer. But, definitely he seems like a kid that I could easily see ending up at Notre Dame.
Yeah, he reminds me of one of those kids that goes to Iowa, is a 3-year starter and becomes an all-conference player, and a damn good football player. That's the kind of guy he reminds me of. And I think that's what you're going to see. Doesn't quite have the body of a Brennan Vernon, who immediately kind of, is going to go inside and become that kind of player. I think he's a guy that will probably end up growing into that. Certainly, I think he has the quickness, to play strong side defensive end, and we'll see what happens with him. All right, we're going to move on. And the kid from Omaha, I've seen this kid play. This kid's a very, very good football player. It's an interesting situation because I think his best position is probably inside, but he plays a whole lot of outside. And so when you look at this guy, you're like, is this the kind of guy that they want as a rover? And, because that's what he plays a lot is outside. And, he doesn't have quite the Jalen Sneed athleticism, but when you look at him compared to, say, a Jack Kaiser, I think he's even quite a bit more athletic than him. Plays a lot in coverage. As you see here, he's a guy who makes a lot of plays in coverage, but extremely violent player. And this is just a very, very, very good football player. But I do think that his best case scenario would probably be as an inside backer, probably as a will backer. But again, a very violent player, guy who runs to the football. And I love the guy as a football player. There's no question about it. It's just what position is he going to be? And, and I don't know what the answer to that is. I know he's extremely, he's a guy that a lot of teams really, really like. And when you watch him actually play on the field, he's a guy who makes a lot of plays. And very highly thought of around Nebraska, probably the number one prospect in Nebraska for sure this year. And even though he's a 2025 guy, I think he's the number one prospect this year as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. The one thing we do know is father played at Nebraska, and that's going to be difficult to overcome, certainly. But I do think Notre Dame has a legit shot at him if they want him. It's just where is he going to line up for Notre Dame? And so, I don't know how many linebackers are going to take in this class, Chris. I know that there's a number that they like and they're in on. But this is certainly a guy they do like and offered very early. So we'll see what happens. What can you tell us about Christian Jones?
Yeah, like you said, he's a guy that they offered very early. He was one of their top, when this 2025 list was just getting put together, he was a guy that was on it from almost the very, very beginning. It might come down to simple. I mean, you talked about his being from Nebraska, being the top, prospect in the state, regardless of class. Dad played in Nebraska. How is Notre Dame going to be able to combat that? If Nebraska struggles big time, which I know some people think they're going to, in year one under Matt Rule, then Notre Dame's going to have a really, really good shot. If Nebraska is able to, show a lot of promise and that the arrow's pointing in the right direction, it's going to be that much harder. That being said, I think he comes into this visit with an open mind. I think one of the key factors here, at least in terms of making the visit well, is he is very good friends and teammates with 2024 Irish commit Teddy Rizak. And not just they play on the same team. They play, Christian told me that he transferred to West Side, and when he transferred to West Side, Teddy was one of the very first people to say, "Hey, listen, I got you. I'm going to help you make this transition," and he's very, very appreciative of that. So, having had that happen at one school already, I don't think it'd be crazy to for him to see the picture of maybe Teddy can help me transition to Notre Dame as well. But like I said, Nebraska's gonna be hard to beat. He comes in with an open mind though, and if Notre Dame continues to start they have, and Nebraska continues to start they have, it can get really, really tight, really, really quick.
Yeah, he just reminds me of Josh Burnham so much. As kind of a Mike Backer. I think he's a little more athletic than Burnham, and so I would love to see him as a Mike Backer, but there's just not a lot of film out there of him playing that type of a position. And, can he read? Can he, feel the flow of what's happening inside? And you don't know. But when you look at his ability, I think it's really, really good for a Mike type backer. And, in a Bodie Calhoun type of situation, it's a similar situation. Although he is playing inside now, was not necessarily that, played safety a whole lot before he was offered. So it's more of a projectable situation. But I really like this guy. He's just a damn good football player, and you need these types of guys on your team. All right, we're moving on here. Who's next on the list, Chris? All right, Anthony Sacca. All right. Obviously, this is crazy. This guy, they list him at 6'5". I'm not sure he's 6'5", but he's definitely 6'4", and plays safety. And I don't think he's as athletic as a Kyle Hamilton. But this is a type of guy that could potentially be the rover that you're looking for. It's nice to have that kind of length, and he does have good length. Good long arms. Certainly the kind of size you're looking for. It'd be nice to have that as a rover, because you don't necessarily have to be as fast as say a Jalen Sneed, because you have a few more inches to bat away a ball like you see here. So this is an interesting situation with this kid, because obviously, like Christian Jones, dad went and played at Penn State, but he's been at Notre Dame a number of times, seems to have a legit interest. I see him certainly more as a linebacker than I do as a safety. Can he play the rover position? I don't know. But he's even got the body type that maybe could end up developing into more of a Vyper type of player as well. So very good football player. You watch his film, there's a lot of film of him making plays. So I think he's a good football player. I don't know, Chris, did they have much of a shot when it comes against Penn State? What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I think they do. I mean, we're talking about Christian Jones and how he's been on the board since the beginning. I mean, Sacca's definitely been on the board since the beginning. Yeah. Just an absolute, no doubt prospect. I mean, his coaching staff was down at the Army Bowl I think a couple of years ago, they were the staff, and they were already talking about this kid and just how Notre Dame was going to be all over him and everything. And, it comes from a very, top program, St. Joe's. Seems like it would lend itself to Notre Dame. The other thing you mentioned, his dad. Yeah, his dad was the quarterback at Penn State in the late 80s. He played with Al Golden. You got a connection there. And I know Anthony has talked about, the relationship there and how much he likes Coach Golden and, all that stuff. So that'll be important. He seems like a kid who just kind of is very comfortable with the process. He's not rushing anything. He was at Notre Dame for the spring game. Didn't take any visits this summer except Ohio State. And that was kind of the plan. I remember talking to him early in the summer. He's like, I don't think I'm going anywhere except maybe Ohio State. And that was it. This year, I'm not even sure he's going to get to Penn State for a game. He's got to be able to do that. But he's like, I'm going to go to Notre Dame. I think he said he might go to Wisconsin. But he's not in a huge hurry to be like, I got to knock out these visits or else I'm, not going to have a decision. He just seems like he's taking it real nice and slow. And a prospect of his caliber has the luxury to do that. So I do think, Notre Dame, obviously Penn State's probably the team to beat. I think Notre Dame has a shot. I think it's telling that Ohio State is the only school he visited in the summer. So I think those are, a couple schools to look at there, which are, competitive with. But if Notre Dame can beat Ohio State, they're going to be right in the mix here, I have to think, unless he's already decided pretty much that Penn State's where it is for him. I don't believe he has.
All right. Well, we're going to move on again here, Chris. Oh, my gosh. Boy, do I love this kid. Oh, my gosh. I'm telling you, Chris, this kid's just a star. I mean, this kid is just a star. Look at him just get up there. You got to – somehow they have to land this kid. And I don't know how. It's probably a long shot. But, I mean there's a film on here that you didn't show, or it was one of the very first ones where he intercepts the ball. I think it's the third play on his full film, and he's coming back on a return and just has this really, really quick jump cut that he makes that you have to have incredible hips in order to do this. And you're just like, wow, this guy's going to be a special player. And to me, I think that this guy, you got a lot of wide receiver stuff here because I think you're trying to show his top end speed, but and his ability to go up and get the football, which is elite. But when you talk about a cover corner, this guy is, I just can't remember seeing too many corners that are better than this guy. Just tremendous mirroring, just great anticipation, the speed to run with anybody, very good tackler. That I know there's probably guys that are bigger, that may have more elite traits as far as height, that type of thing. I doubt you'll find a better corner than this kid. This kid's going to be a tremendous player. And it's the type of guy that Georgia seems to get every year. Notre Dame doesn't. But I mean, I haven't watched all the corners that are out there. I would be very surprised if there's a better cornerback prospect than this kid. I love the fact that he's coming up. You always have a shot when that happens. And if that's the case, we'll see what happens. It's been hard to take kids, certainly from the state of Georgia, although Notre Dame's done a better job than most, especially in the Midwest. But as long as Georgia continues to do as well as they are, it's going to be difficult to take kids. A lot of these kids from Buford go to Georgia. I think the last one that went to Notre Dame was Darius Walker that I can remember. Mm-hmm. So, it's not unfounded that couldn't happen, but I don't know. I don't know whether they'll have much of a shot. All I know, this kid's a darn good football player, and I want him in the class. What can you tell us about Devin Williams?
I think Darius is the last Buford prospect to sign with Notre Dame. I think some fans will remember there was another prospect that was committed to Notre Dame. It didn't sign with Notre Dame years back.
Yeah, unfortunately, and flipped and went to the other school.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this: Notre Dame hasn't had a ton of success recruiting Buford, but it hasn't been for lack of effort, and it hasn't been for anything wrong with Notre Dame. I feel like I call this school every year, and every year I get the same spiel. They promised there's three schools in the country that their kids, or maybe four, that their kids have to take a serious look at if they get offered. It's Notre Dame, I believe it's Duke, Northwestern, and Stanford. So Notre Dame is always preaching. Notre Dame seems to even stand out amongst that list because of the true, tradition with the football program. So you'll see a lot of Buford kids serious about Notre Dame, and he's one of them, right? So he came up. It's great, like you said, it's great that he's coming for the game. But for me, it's even more encouraging that he came to camp. So he was there already, and really, really enjoyed himself there. Really liked working with Mickens and the whole staff. So that's a really, really good thing. Like you said, he's got all the offers. He got Georgia, Bama, Florida, Texas, A&M, Michigan, all those schools. But he also seems like the kind of kid that appreciates what Notre Dame can offer. Just seems like a bright, happy young man. I don't think he would be, I mean, maybe he'd be coming to this game if it wasn't serious, but from everything I've talked to him about, and I know about Buford, I do think he's serious. Now, when you're talking about these elite level prospects from other parts of the country, being serious about Notre Dame and signing with Notre Dame, there's a big difference there. But at the same time, they're going to have a shot. They're getting him on campus for a big time game, show them a big time atmosphere. Hopefully for Notre Dame, a big time win, and they'll go from there.
I think win is everything in this recruitment. It really is. I think if Notre Dame wins, it's going to open his eyes and they're going to be like, oh, yeah. Kids love dealing with Coach Mickens. There's no doubt about it. He's a good recruiter. He does well. His players play well. He's got a track record of developing elite prospects. You can go to Georgia and you'll probably start. Maybe you won't. You come to Notre Dame. If you're this kid, you're going to start. There's just no doubt about it. I wish we had more corner stuff of him. If you get a chance, go watch his film. Dude, this guy is elite, man. I'm telling you, I want this guy so bad because it's just the type of player that Notre Dame needs when you're playing a Marvin Harrison. You need somebody who can run with Marvin Harrison and get up like that. And that's what you need. I love this kid. I really hope they get him, and we'll have to see. All right, well, moving on. I love this kid too, man. I'm telling you, Chris, I've been following Notre Dame football for a long time. I cannot remember a better corner prospect in the state of Indiana. I honestly can't. And I know Notre Dame likes this guy quite a bit. This guy's a really, really sound, well-coached football player. Really good corner, very good in press coverage, physical. Just mirrors very, very well and can run. He can really run. You'll see some defensive plays, where he's running, but there's also some plays, I don't know if they're on this clip because we can't show them all, where he's downfield blocking and shows his top end speed. And you're just like, wow, this guy can flat run. So it's been a long time since Notre Dame, or really there's been a lot of really good corners in the state of Indiana. There's a reason Georgia and places like that are coming after this kid because he's really that talented. And you put him and Devin together, and I'll be the happiest dude you've ever seen because I love both these players. I think they're tremendous. What do we know about Zackery?
Yeah, so he really saw his recruitment just blow up this winter, and it was just like a domino effect with all these high major offers coming in. But he'd already been pretty interested in Notre Dame, and he's already experienced somewhat of a big time game atmosphere. He was at the Clemson game last year. He's been to Notre Dame multiple times. His interest in Notre Dame is legit. And, Notre Dame checks a lot of boxes for him, right? His dad is one of the staff members at Ben Davis, and his dad played college football and blew out his knee and wasn't able to, continue pursuing it as high as he wanted to. So they know very well about how, football is going to end one day and how important it is to have a backup plan or even, a plan A, plan 1A, whatever you want to call it. So that's a very, very important part. I think Notre Dame's doing a great job of, showing him how much of a priority he is. He's also a very, very mature young man who seems like he would fit very easily socially at Notre Dame. And it's just a kid that's really interested in Notre Dame. Now, like you said, Mike, all those schools from down south, all those, SEC schools, they're coming after him just because of the player that he is, like you described. So it's not going to be a layup for Notre Dame, just sneaking in and getting a good, solid in-state player. This is a truly national prospect. Now being in state's going to help, but it's not going to be the only thing that's going to get them home with him.
I'll tell you what's going to help is that his dad, one, as you mentioned, had the experience he had, but two, that he's also a football coach. And I'll tell you why. Football coaches want to watch their sons play, right? But if you coach at a place like Ben Davis, I mean, that's a full-time gig. You are constantly busy. So he's not going to be able to take off and go down and watch him play at Georgia. That's just not going to happen. He's got too much of a responsibility to coach at a place like that. Those are places that you're coaching every day. You're doing every day type of stuff. And so I think that's going to actually help Notre Dame in this regard. So we'll see what happens with him. But I really like this guy. I think he's going to be a tremendous player no matter where he goes. And I'm very excited about him. I really hope he jumps into the class early because they need him. They really do. And they need to keep stacking these corners and getting guys that have this kind of ability because the game isn't changing. There's, they need guys who can cover all these elite wide receivers, and there's so many of them out there. The passing game is really starting to dominate college football, and you need guys who can cover, and I think this guy's a really talented player. So, all right, moving on again. This is an interesting one. It doesn't have a lot of offers. JaDon Blair doesn't have a lot of offers, but this kid's a really good athlete, and I understand why Notre Dame offered this kid. What he is he's a very good tackler. If you watch over and over and over, there is so much film of him tackling, and not a lot of him as a coverage safety, but you need guys who can play in the box. He plays in the box. He's very, very physical. When it's just crazy. You don't get to watch all the game film to see, but he's just such a sound tackler in everything that he does. The angles that he takes, he wraps up. And so I totally understand why Notre Dame took him. And he is a heck of an athlete. They list him at 6'4". I'm not sure he's 6'4", but looks 6'3". And he's a rangy player. He can run. But we just don't see a whole lot of him in coverage. And I think that's the reason he doesn't have a whole lot of big-time offers or really a whole lot of offers at this point. I think if he shows some of that as a junior, you're going to see a lot more teams come after him because he is such a good tackler. He's rangy, he's got size, and he can make a lot of plays. But want to see the coverage. Totally understand why Notre Dame offered him, though. There's a lot to like here. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, they offered him back in March with the big, St. Patrick's Day push, and he came up for the grill and chill in July. They came into that visit. I spoke with him and his family members with extremely high expectations for Notre Dame, and they were met and probably exceeded, right? So he just loved it. He's another one of those kids. I mentioned the grill and chill before. Another one of those kids where that event really allowed him to interact with fellow recruits and commits and really could see himself in that group of kids at Notre Dame. So he is, if last visit exceeded his expectations, if this visit exceeds expectations, it's going to be really hard for me to imagine him not ending up at Notre Dame just based on how high the expectations are coming in. I mean, him and his family are so excited about this visit. They're probably more excited than anybody I've spoken to so far about this upcoming visit in the game. And they keep telling me about the green out and how exciting it's going to be and the fight song. I mean, they're going on and on and on about how great it is. They're just so excited. And if they come away, they already say they know they're going to come away blown away. But if they come away where, expectations are exceeded, Notre Dame's going to be way, way up there on his list. Now he's already visited Penn State and Virginia Tech and North Carolina this season. I believe he wasn't able to really stay at the Virginia Tech game. I think it was one of the weather delays. And Notre Dame's making him a priority. He told me that last Saturday, he had a game Friday night, and last Saturday he was getting his workout in, and he got a FaceTime call from Marcus Freeman and Chris O'Leary. So before their game against Central Michigan.
That's legit.
That tells you how serious, Notre Dame is about him for their FaceTime in a safety, 2025 safety before their own game.
Yeah. I think he's going to be – you can see the potential of this kid. Again, you just wish that you saw some more coverage. You guys a nice pick there in coverage. But, boy, what a tackler. And I totally get why he was offered. So, all right, moving on. And I think this is our last guy, which is Ethan Long. Been to Notre Dame, high on Notre Dame, very good athlete. Again, probably not 6'4", but certainly at least 6'2", very long player. The thing about him, there is a lot of film of him playing coverage, and there's quite a bit, and he's very, very good at it. Certainly, got some ability as far as running and that type of thing. Very good tackler as well. So totally understand. And again, Ohio State's offered this guy, Michigan, Penn State. There's, there's a reason that a lot of those big time schools are coming after him, even though he's in just Connecticut. No disrespect there, Christian. You know,
I don't live in Connecticut.
I know, but you love the area. So
yeah,
I know,
damn,
but
I'm damn close. I'll tell you that. I could probably
yeah,
throw
exactly.
In Connecticut.
Exactly. But so I mean, I just this kid's a really talented player. Likes Notre Dame quite a bit. And, you know, it would not surprise me if he ends up in Notre Dame's class at some point. And I think that'd be a good thing because he's got a lot of things, a lot of positives for him. What can you tell us about Ethan Long?
You were talking about Matty Augustine earlier and how I said that Matty pretty much was pretty adamant about the fact that he would not make a decision before the end of the season because he wanted to see Michigan. Ethan, I saw Ethan the same day. Ethan did not give me that same kind of guarantee of I'm not going to make a decision until X, Y, and Z. He said, whenever it's right, it's right. And I think there's a chance this weekend could be right? Like, I mean, he loves Notre Dame. His cousin, Austin Webster, was a walk-on receiver for Notre Dame, who was a captain at Notre Dame. And so he's in Austin's been like a real role model for Ethan pretty much his whole life. He looks up to him. And Austin's had nothing but good things to say about Notre Dame. And Ethan's eyes, you know, he's one of those kids, he brightens up when you talk about Notre Dame. He loves everything about it. He's been there for camp. He was there for the grill and chill. He loves Coach O'Leary. He loves Chad Bowden, Marcus Freeman, all those guys. He visited Penn State at the beginning of the season. I don't think when I talked to him, he didn't have anything planned beyond Penn State and then Notre Dame. Now, as always, these Connecticut schools, most of their games are on Saturdays. But Matty and Ethan told me that, you know, their coach, Wayne McGillicuddy down there at Brunswick, has done a good job of, you know, understanding that these kids need to get out and see places and has made it possible for them to make visits when possible. So the fact that he doesn't really have anything lined up, he didn't say anything about going to that Michigan game at the end of the year. I know Notre Dame's hopeful that they can lock them down, and I think that they have a chance at that. If there's a big name player this week that you're hoping for Notre Dame to get locked down on, and I think Ethan Long could be it.
I like him. I'll take him. Absolutely. So excited about that if that happens. But I do think Notre Dame's going to do a good job this weekend in recruiting. You know, just we got to hope that they have a good showing on the field. Chris, if they have a good showing, things are going to turn out all right. And that's what we got to hope for. But, you know, good start. Certainly getting Deuce. I like the other two guys committed in this class in 2025. It's a good start so far. And, you know, just to get a defensive lineman from Florida early in the process, and I love the kid. I think that guy's going to be a really good player. So to me, I really like where they're at in 2025. You know, need to add some players, need to add some more skilled talent for sure. You know, Talyn Taylor, hey man, jump aboard because that will certainly help in that regard. And we'll see what happens with some of these others. But you know, we'd mentioned I think Flanagan was supposed to come. It looks like he's going to push that off. I don't think there's anything to worry about with that. You know, as far as, you know, him not being as interested in Notre Dame or anything like that. But there will be more names added to the list. This isn't an exhaustive list. There's other guys that are coming that are also some top guys that, you know, may end up liking Notre Dame in the end. And, you know, until we actually see what they think of them, we didn't put them on, you know, there's only so much time you can do. We've always noticed that, you know, anything after an hour, people get tired of listening to us talk. So it's just what it is. But we'll be back. We're going to be doing a lot more of this as the season goes on and we get some junior film and Chris and I can kind of break down. We'll go more position by position as the season breaks down and we start to get some more junior film and can talk a little bit more about some of these players that they've offered. And I'm sure there'll be more new offers coming as well. So that's going to be it for the show, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. And hopefully Notre Dame will be able to impress a lot of these guys with a great showing and hopefully a big win against Ohio State. If you're not a member of Irish Sports Daily, it's a great time to sign up. Go to the front page of Irish Sports Daily, click on the premium section, and you can celebrate what's going on right now. There'll be a lot of stuff exciting going on after this game with recruiting, and Chris will be all over that, talking to all these players and getting updates on their visits. So hopefully you'll be back for that. If you like our video, make sure you like the channel and also like or subscribe to the channel as well. That helps us as well. So thanks for watching. We'll talk to you again next time on our recruiting show.